Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. There is a growing narrative among currency watchers and retail investors, especially those who follow the trajectory of emerging market currencies like the Iraqi dinar, that one day Iraq's national currency will skyrocket in value, perhaps to levels that rival or even surpass the US dollar, British pound, or Kuwaiti dinar. Some speculate on valuations of $3, $4, or even $5 per Iraqi dinar. Such beliefs, while often born from optimism and hope for Iraq's economic resurgence, lack grounding in the current realities of global economics, fiscal policy, and geopolitical context. It's important to confront these ideas with a balance of realism and a firm grasp of how currency valuation actually works in the international arena. Let's begin with the core idea. Iraq is a nation undergoing significant transformation. The country has experienced decades of conflict, from the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s to the Gulf War of the early 1990s, followed by the US-led invasion in 2003 and the subsequent insurgency and civil unrest. Most recently, Iraq endured a brutal fight against ISIS that devastated infrastructure, displaced millions, and drained public finances. Emerging from such a backdrop, any nation would face an uphill climb toward economic stability, monetary credibility, and international reintegration. That said, it would be incorrect to view Iraq as a hopeless case. On the contrary, Iraq possesses tremendous natural wealth, particularly in oil, and has a young, growing population and strategic geographic importance. In recent years, there has been tangible progress on several fronts: macroeconomic reforms led by the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, growing foreign reserves, enhanced compliance with international banking standards, and increasing engagement with regional and global partners. Iraq's GDP has recovered since its lowest points, inflation is relatively under control, and the country has made strides toward digitizing its banking infrastructure, reducing corruption, and developing private sector capacity. However, despite this progress, Iraq remains a long way from achieving the economic and political stability required for a dramatic revaluation of its currency, especially to the extreme levels often floated in speculative communities. Let's consider what it actually means for a currency to be valued at $3, $4, or $5 per unit. A currency value of $1 per dinar would imply that a single dinar is worth more than nearly every other currency in the world. At $3 per dinar, it would rival the Kuwaiti dinar, the highest valued currency globally, which is supported by a small population, a large sovereign wealth fund, and tightly managed monetary policies linked to a robust oil exporting economy. For the Iraqi dinar to reach or surpass this level, the country would need not just oil wealth, but massive structural changes in governance, productivity, investment climate, and institutional strength. Valuing a currency at such high levels isn't merely a matter of hope or political will. It depends on a country's real economic output, balance of trade, monetary reserves, inflation control, and the global demand for its currency. It also depends on how many units of that currency are in circulation. Iraq currently has trillions of dinars in circulation, partly a legacy of high-denomination printing after 2003, and also due to the country's heavy reliance on cash-based transactions. For a currency with such massive supply to be valued at $1 or more per unit would require either a massive currency redenomination, such as removing zeros, or a complete overhaul of its monetary base. Without such structural changes, any sudden upward revaluation to high fixed exchange rates would create significant imbalances, including the risk of hyperinflation, a collapse in exports, and instability in domestic prices. It's also worth noting the role of currency speculation in fueling unrealistic expectations. Since the early 2000s, especially after the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, there has been a steady cottage industry of dinar dealers and speculative forums promising that Iraq's currency is on the verge of a massive windfall. These claims are rarely grounded in sound economic analysis and often fail to distinguish between a redenomination, a managed float, and a genuine revaluation. They tend to ignore Iraq's structural challenges, such as weak legal institutions, pervasive corruption, fragmented political authority, and over-reliance on oil exports, all of which constrain the central bank's ability to implement drastic currency shifts. Moreover, monetary policy in Iraq is still closely tied to political developments. While recent governments have shown signs of reform-minded thinking, political instability, factionalism, and a lack of institutional continuity have often stalled or reversed progress. For a central bank to have the credibility necessary for bold monetary reforms, including a free-floating currency or a major revaluation, it must operate independently of political interference, maintain transparent communication, and be backed by strong fiscal discipline from the broader government. Iraq's banking system, too, remains underdeveloped by international standards. Although efforts are underway to digitize payments, enforce KYC, know your customer, protocols, and modernize banking infrastructure, a significant portion of the population remains unbanked or underbanked. Many Iraqis still transact in cash and store wealth outside the formal financial system. This undermines monetary transmission mechanisms and reduces the central bank's ability to control inflation, interest rates, and currency flows. To summarize, the dream of seeing the Iraqi dinar valued at $5, $4, or even $3 per unit is, at this stage, more fantasy than fact. While Iraq is indeed on a long road towards stability, development, and international financial integration, such valuations are disconnected from the structural economic foundations required to sustain them. That does not mean Iraq is doomed or that the dinar will remain weak forever. It simply means that any rise in the dinar's value, whether gradual or strategic, must be rooted in real economic growth, strong governance, credible institutions, and global confidence. Iraq is a country with immense potential. It has a young population hungry for opportunity, a rich cultural history, abundant natural resources, and a geostrategic location that positions it well for future trade and investment. Its leaders are beginning to make the right moves, though progress is uneven and slow. It is on the way to getting its act together, as some might say, but that journey is far from complete. The road ahead is filled with both promise and challenge. Hopes for the dinar's appreciation should be tethered to Iraq's actual progress, not wishful thinking. And those who truly want to see the country succeed would do well to focus not just on exchange rates, but on broader reforms that make such success sustainable. Thanks for tuning in to Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed and stay ready.